Good evening, viewers. You have tuned into the news on Sansad TV with me, Bhawna Nayar. Over the next 30 minutes, we bring you all the top national and international stories. First up, as always, the headlines this Saturday evening. For the first time in 103 days, daily count of COVID-19 cases crosses 8,000. 193 crore doses given under vaccination campaign so far. Indian economy defied 3 waves of COVID to make a strong comeback and clock 8% growth in 2021, says US Treasury report. Union Home Minister chairs Western Zonal Council meeting, discussion on interstate borders, security, infrastructure, transport and industries, emphasizes on better coordination. In the election for 16 seats of Rajya Sabha, BJP wins 8 seats. Congress takes 5 out of the total 57 vacant. 41 candidates were elected unopposed earlier. US inflation touches a record 8.6% in 4 decades. Global supply chain disruptions trigger increase in prices of fuel and food items. And now let us take a look at some more important stories of the day. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu remembers Ram Prasad Bismil on his birth anniversary. Says Bismil inspired many freedom fighters. Rise in female entrepreneur-owned biotech company sign of women-led empowerment, asserts Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh. IMA holds passing out parade in Uttarakhand's Dehradun. 288 young officers get ready for national service. Telangana Chief Minister KCR likely to float National Party Bharat RASHTRIYA Samiti. TRS says final decision on June 19th. BJP's Central Disciplinary Committee issues show cause notice to Rajasthan MLA Shobha Rani Kushwaha. Kushwaha had cross-voted in Rajya Sabha elections. National Conference on Competition Law held in New Delhi. Economic power will make India's voice heard, says Union Minister Rao Inderjeet Singh. NSA Ajit Doval visits Rashtriya Raksha University in Gujarat. Reviews academic and research setup at university. US to drop pre-departure COVID-19 international air testing requirements from Sunday. Airlines and travel industry cheers. Beijing won't hesitate to start a war over Taiwan. Chinese Defense Minister Wei Fenghe tells US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. And UNGA adopts India-sponsored resolution on multilingualism. Mentions Hindi language for the first time. And now the top story of the day. The BJP won 8 of the 16 Rajya Sabha seats, while the Congress won 5 in the elections that were held on Friday. BJP candidates Union Minister Piyush Goyal, former State Minister Anil Bonde and party leader Dhananjay Mahadik won from Maharashtra. Praful Patel of NSP, NCP, Imran Pratapgarhi of Congress and Sanjay Raut of Shiv Sena were the other elected leaders from Maharashtra. In Haryana, BJP candidate Krishna Lal Panwar won a seat, while BJP and JJP backed independent candidate Kartikeya Sharma also sailed through. In Karnataka, the BJP got 3 seats, and while Congress got 1 seat, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, actor and politician Jagesh, and MLC Lahar Singh Siroya were elected from the BJP. Jairam Ramesh of Congress won 1 seat. In Rajasthan, the Congress won 3 of the 4 Rajya Sabha seats. Congress Randeep Singh Surjewala, Mukul Vasnik and Pramod Tiwari were among the winners, as was the BJP's Ghanshyam Tiwari. Biennial elections were held for 57 seats in Rajya Sabha. Of these, 41 candidates from various parties were elected unopposed in various states. BJP has 14 out of these 41 seats. For the first time in 103 days, over 8,000 cases of COVID-19 were reported in 24 hours. It swelled the number of patients under treatment to 40,370. 8,329 new cases of coronavirus were registered since Friday. The number of patients under treatment is now 0.09% of the total cases of infection, while the national rate of recovery is 98.69%. So far, over 192.92 crore doses have been given under the nationwide anti-COVID-19 vaccination campaign. The US Treasury Department has said that the Indian economy defied 3 waves of COVID-19 to make a strong comeback. In its half-yearly report, it said that the second wave of the pandemic had a severe impact on economic growth till mid-2021. But the economy recovered strongly in the second half of the year as India's immunization program picked up. The US Treasury Ministry also said that by the end of the 2021, 44% of the India's population was vaccinated. It noted that the growth rate reached pre-pandemic levels in the second quarter of 2021, while the full year growth rate touched 8% in 2021. In the beginning of the year 2022, India faced the third wave due to Omicron virus. And now news from across the nation. President Ramnath Kovind visited the Atal Tunnel in Rohtang, Himachal Pradesh on the last leg of his 2-day visit to Himachal Pradesh. The Atal Tunnel connects Kullu and Lahaul Spiti districts. On his arrival, the president was accorded a traditional welcome at the Shishu airstrip in Lahaul Spiti. BJP President JP Nadda met the head of the missions of 13 countries at the party headquarters in Delhi on Saturday. The conversation is part of the BJP's Ko Jano series launched by the party president. Envoys of Britain, Spain, Finland, Croatia, Serbia and Austria were among those who attended. A Hizbul Mujahideen terrorist was killed in an encounter in Jammu and Kashmir's Kulgam district. It took place during a search operation for the terrorist in the Kandipora area. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla laid tributes to K.S. Hegde on his birth anniversary in the Central Hall of Parliament today. K.S. Hegde was the Speaker of the Lok Sabha from 1977 to 1980. Union Home Minister Amit Shah chaired the meeting of the Western Zonal Council. That includes Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa and the Union Territories of Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu. Issues related to interstate borders, security, infrastructure, transport and industries were discussed in the meeting. The outcome of the conference will be implemented for better coordination and work. Moving ahead, the last of the fuel shipments due under the Indian line of credit are arriving in Sri Lanka this month. There are no indications about future supplies. Sri Lanka's fuel purchases have been totally dependent on the Indian line of credit. The initial $500 million credit line was supplemented with another $200 million later. The minimum daily requirement of diesel was 5,000 metric tons as people needed to run private generators due to the power cut imposed. With the difficulties faced in fuel supplies, the government said it was working on extending credit lines from India for fuel purchases. India has helped Sri Lanka with thousands of tons of diesel and petrol apart from food and medical supplies to help ease the acute financial crisis. Moving ahead, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has underscored the need to protect farmers and help them in every way to make agriculture profitable. He was speaking at the release of the book Prakriti Sainyam or Mother Nature's Army by Ritu Nestam Publications in Hyderabad on Saturday. The book details the success stories of 100 farmers who shifted to organic and traditional farming. The Vice President said farmers taking up allied activities, particularly animal husbandry, will benefit organic farming by providing a potent source of manure and biofertilizers. Noting that the British rule had destroyed Indian agriculture, the Vice President said that it was gratifying to see efforts made in recent years to return to organic farming. He called upon the media, scientific fraternity and people of the society to show a positive attitude towards farmers.
Love and live with the nature. Nature, culture together for better future. Pasu Sampada, Desa Sampada. Cattle wealth is a national wealth and Japan.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu also visited an exhibition of organic products here. He interacted with some of the farmers and praised the young farmers engaged in organic and natural farming.
Before 10 years, we have tried traditional farming and we are successfully running, and we are preparing jaggery and we sell rice and all. It is good for health and it makes us better as a person.
इसमें हमें यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो कि चावल, देसी चावल जो होता है, जो हमारा अद्भुत वित्तन जो होता है, वो वित्तन को हम संरक्षित कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे हैदराबाद में.
And slipping into a short break here, on the other side, never before seen 12-minute video of extremist groups leading the deadly siege in Capitol Hill on January 6, 2020. All this after this short break. You stay tuned to Sansad TV. Welcome back after the break. You're watching the news, and time now for all the main developments from Russia-Ukraine war front. Ukrainian President Zelensky told the Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore that the war in his country had affected not just Ukraine but the future of international order. He said that it is on the battlefields of Ukraine that the future rule of this world is being decided, along with the boundaries of the possible. Zelensky also urged international pressure to end a Russian naval blockade of Black Sea ports that has choked off his country's grain exports, threatening a global food crisis. Kyiv is in discussion with the UN, Turkey and other countries to open a way to allow the grain exports, and Zelensky said the talks are on focus that format of the corridor. Dozens of Ukrainians left on a special evacuation train from the city of Pokrovsk, heading to Dnipro and other cities further west. Mostly women, children and the elderly were aboard the train, which was carrying about 300 people who were forced to leave as fighting encroached their homes. Hundreds of people are fleeing the intense fighting in eastern Ukraine as Russian and Ukrainian forces battle for control in the Luhansk and Donetsk regions. Ukraine is in control of Azot chemical plant in Severodonetsk, where hundreds of civilians are sheltering, the region's governor has said. A Russia's-backed separatist has claimed that 300 to 400 Ukrainian fighters were trapped here. The governor said their forces were holding an industrial zone in Severodonetsk. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed its forces shot down 3 Ukrainian warplanes. The Russian military shot down 2 MiG-29 planes in Mykolaiv region and Su-25 fighter jet in the Kharkiv region. There was no immediate comment from Ukraine. European Union Chief Ursula von der Leyen arrived in Kiev to discuss with President Zelensky his country's candidacy in the European Union. He will also talk about a stock of the work needed for reconstruction and progress made by Ukraine on its path to join the EU. Ukrainian officials said that the war in the east, where Russia is focusing its attention, is now primarily an artillery battle in which Kyiv is severely outgunned. They said everything now depends on what the West gives them, adding that Ukraine has 1 artillery piece to 10 to 15 Russian artillery pieces. Time now for some other global updates. America is experiencing its highest inflation in over 40 years, with prices of gas, food and most other goods and services surging in May. With respite from rising costs, Americans say they are having to dip into their savings to survive. Here's the report.
Consumer prices surged 8.6% last month from a year earlier, faster than April's year-over-year increase of 8.3%, the U.S. Labor Department said on Friday. The new inflation figures is the highest since 1981. It will heighten pressure on the Federal Reserve to continue raising interest rates aggressively. On a month-to-month basis, prices jumped 1% from April to May, much faster than the 0.3% increase from March to April. Contributing to the surge were much higher prices for everything from airline tickets to restaurant meals to new and used cars. Those price spikes also elevated so-called core inflation, a measure that excludes volatile food and energy prices. In May, core prices jumped a sharp 0.6% for a second straight month. They are now 6 above where they were a year ago. Friday's report underscored fears that inflation is spreading well beyond energy and goods, whose prices are being driven by clogged supply chains and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Gas prices rose 4% in May. They have soared nearly 50% in 1 year. The cost of groceries surged nearly 12% last month from a year earlier, the biggest such increase since 1979. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
The U.S. House panel investigating the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol laid the blame firmly on the former U.S. President Donald Trump, saying that the assault was hardly spontaneous but an attempted coup and a direct result of the defeated president's efforts to overturn the 2020 elections. More details in this report.
The January 6th committee that is investigating the January 6th insurrection has provided a never-before-seen 12-minute video of extremist groups leading the deadly siege in Capitol Hill. The committee says it was the most violent attack on the Capitol since 1814. It said that its investigation is intended to stand as its public record. Testimony provided by some members of Trump's inner circle shows how Trump clung to claims of election fraud despite those around him insisting that Biden had won the election. The panel played a video clip in which former Attorney General Bill Barr testified that he told Trump the claims of a rigged election were bull. In another, the former president's daughter, Ivanka Trump, testified to the committee that she respected Barr's view that there was no election fraud. "I accepted what he said," she said. Footage showed leaders of the extremist Oath Keepers and Proud Boys preparing to storm the Capitol to stand up for Trump. One rider after another told the committee they came to the Capitol because Trump asked them to. Police officers who had fought off the mob consoled one another as they sat in the committee room, reliving the violence that they faced on January 6th. The Justice Department has arrested and charged more than 800 people for the violence that day, the biggest dragnet in its history. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And some more news from across the world. Stocks fell sharply in US on Friday on data that inflation got worse last month, not better. The S&P 500 gave it 2.9%, while the Dow finished 880 points lower to end at 31,392. The Nasdaq dropped 414 points to 11,340. Wall Street came into Friday hoping a highly anticipated report would show the worst inflation in generations slowed a touch last month and passed its peak. Instead, the US government said inflation accelerated to 8.6% in May from 8.3% a month before. Former Bolivian interim president Janine Áñez was sentenced 10 years imprisonment on Friday with charges linked to her assumption of office in 2019 amid violent protests that led to the resignation and exile of her predecessor Evo Morales. Áñez was convicted by the court of dereliction of duty and acting against the constitution when she proclaimed herself president in what Morales and his party have called a coup. US President Joe Biden and other Western Hemisphere leaders on Friday announced a roadmap for countries hosting large number of migrants and refugees. The Los Angeles Declaration is perhaps the biggest achievement of the summit of the America that was undercut by differences over Biden's invitation list. Leaders of Mexico and several Central American countries sent top diplomats instead after the US excluded Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. China is continuing to harden its position along the borders with India, US Defense Secretary Lloyd James Austin said on Saturday. He stressed that America stands by its friends as they uphold their rights as Beijing adopts the war coercive and aggressive approach to its territorial claims. He was speaking at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. Members of the Five Powers Defense Arrangements met on the sidelines of the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore on Saturday. The Five Powers Defense Arrangements, or FPDA, involves Commonwealth members Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand and the United Kingdom. It is a non-binding treaty formed half a century ago. The countries are to consult each other in the event of armed threats or attacks on former British colonies, Malaysia and Singapore. app is bridging the communication gap for people with hearing loss and speaking well in Pakistan. Users say their quality of life has significantly improved since they downloaded the app that connects them to sign language that interprets in real time via video call. Here's a positive story for you.
A 18-year-old student of interior design, Alishba Ahmed, aspires to start her own business soon. She routinely visits home decoration stores across Karachi to check the latest designs and trends. Ahmed is deaf. She says the quality of her life has significantly improved since she started using the Connect Here app.
I love interior designing. I've always wanted to set up my own business and work as an interior designer. But previously, it was very difficult for me because I was not able to communicate. I always had to rely on my mother or my sister or my cousin to go with me. But now the times have changed for the deaf community. I go out alone with my app. I have an interpreter available on my phone who interprets and helps me communicate with people. I don't have to bother anyone to support me. So now I'm an individual, a deaf person making a difference through this technology, and I'm very grateful for that.
Connect Here was developed in Pakistan by a woman who was born to deaf parents. The app connects to a call center staffed by sign language interpreters. Through the video call, a deaf person can conveniently sign whatever they want to say, which is then conveyed through speech to someone who does not have hearing loss. The app is available during office hours only, but the team is working towards a round-the-clock operation. There are 4 to 5 interpreters on shift per day. The interpreters can sign in the Pakistani Sign Language, which is similar to the Indian Sign Language. This makes the app popular among the South Asian deaf community and the diaspora around the world.
We get calls from many parts of Pakistan, many countries, and around the world, around the globe. We get calls from India, from Bangladesh, from America, and different countries. And scenarios for the calls are bank interview, opening an account, problem with any account, hospital scenarios, some emergency scenarios where communication is very important, talking to their brother, their family members. These are the small scenarios where we get many calls.
Connect Here, launched in July 2021, it is just one of a number of sign language translation apps that help the deaf community communicate. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And time now for all the action from the world of sports. Starting with chess, Indian Grandmaster top-seeded player R. Pragnananda has won the Norway Chess Group A event with 7.5 points from 9 rounds. 16-year-old GM Pragnananda remained unbeaten through the 9 rounds. He finished the tournament with a win over fellow Indian V. Praneeth in the final. Indian Grandmaster Vishwanathan Anand defeated Norway's Arjen Tari in the 9th and final round of the classical section to clinch the 3rd place in Norway chess tournament today. Anand won the round against the Norwegian after the classical match ended in a 22-move draw. World champion Magnus Carlsen won the tournament 4th time in a row and 5th time overall. In boxing now, reigning world champion Nikhat Zareen and Olympic bronze medalist Lavlina Borgohain today sealed their berths in the Indian team for the Commonwealth Games with dominating wins in the selection trials. While Nikhat blanked Haryana's Meenakshi via a 7-0 unanimous decision, Lavlina outclassed Railway's Pooja by an identical margin. Neetu 48 kilograms and Jasmine 60 kilograms were the other boxer who also sealed spots for the quadrennial event. In football now, Kylian Mbappe came off the bench to score a late equalizer as France settled for a 1-1 draw with Austria in their Nations League encounter in Vienna. Mbappe appeared as second-half replacement for Antoine Griezmann and burst through in characteristic fashion to smash in the 83rd minute leveler. The result leaves France, who won last year's edition of the Nations League, still without a win 3 games into the new campaign. They are bottom of League A, Group 1 with 2 points. In cricket now, India will take on marauding South Africa in second T20 in Cuttack tomorrow. South Africa had won the first match played at Delhi with ease, though chasing a daunting Indian total of 211. Captaining the side in absence of KL Rahul, ruled out due to injury, Pant's leadership has been a talking point. The Delhi Dasher will expect an improved showing from the India's bowlers as he plots a comeback. And before we wrap, let's take a look at the headlines once again. For the first time in 103 days, daily count of COVID-19 cases crosses 8,000. 193 crore doses given under vaccination campaign so far. Indian economy defied 3 waves of COVID to make a strong comeback and clock 8% growth in 2021, says US Treasury report. Union Home Minister chairs Western Zonal Council meeting, discussion on interstate borders, security, infrastructure, transport and industries. Emphasizes on better coordination. In the election for 16 seats of Rajya Sabha, BJP wins 8 seats. Congress takes 5 out of the total 57 vacant. 41 candidates were elected unopposed earlier. US inflation touches a record 8.6% in 4 decades. Global supply chain disruptions trigger increase in prices of energy and food items. That's all we have in this bulletin. To keep yourself updated, stay tuned to Sansad TV. Till then, goodbye, namaskar.